He's a highly imaginative character. It seems clear that his awareness of what we call reality is radically underdeveloped.
This year at Dutchtown, when I was thinking about the theme that I would choose for my time here as teacher coach, it was Edward Scissorhands. He is strange to this new city. He is different from others there. He is creative and open-minded, and the city itself is perfect. And so when I came here, it was almost like, what would be my purpose? Who would I be able to assist? And it wasn't necessarily about changing anything or making anything better. It was more about adding to something or snipping off pieces here and there to create a new, beautiful thing. Not that it wasn't beautiful before, because it was, but it would be something new and different and creative. I created a sheet for myself and the person that I was working with to help me keep the process organized. I purposefully included all of the elements that we as teacher coaches use. The NIET rubric with the reinforcement and refinement objective, as well as the Marzano scale at the bottom to allow teachers to use that verbiage to self-assess. I also included a pre-video Google form that they filled out, and we had discussions prior about where they felt like they wanted to work. And I also included the post-video Google form, which was after the video when we would actually set a goal and use the Marzano scale to identify. This year, I worked with several teachers, 3 in particular. I know we were only supposed to pick 1, but that is so hard. So I worked with Lisa Dubrell. I also worked with Chelsea Davenport and Andrea Hughes. The first step is always the most difficult for me, to go into a teacher's room who's already really busy and possibly stressed out, working really hard, and tell them, hey, I'd like to video a lesson. When can I come in? And immediately they're like, video a lesson? No, I don't want to do that. And I get it. I understand that, because who would want to? I would not necessarily want to. So to have teachers allow me to come in and record is the first step, and it's always the most difficult. But I will say that in the first step, the recording and watching of the video, I saw the reason and the purpose for that in this year here at Dutchtown. I saw how when a teacher watches their own video and they look at themselves, the reflection that they have from what they see is so much more deeper than them assuming. I would ask teachers first, what do you think you should work in? Looking at the Big 12 on the NIET rubric, what do you think, where would you like to focus our attention that we're working together now? What would you like to work on? And they would pick one thing, but after they watched the video, sometimes it was the same thing, but often they had chosen something else. And I attribute that to the video. It is a powerful tool to use when you are trying to identify the need.
Y ustedes van a escribir.
Watching the video, I was able to see my strengths, which sometimes I don't focus on because I am hard on myself. And then also, it kind of helped me see things from a different perspective.
Español, no inglés.
So first, tell me your initial.
Oh my god, my initial reaction was that was horrible. I watched it and I was talking. 2x equals 8. And then I kept watching it and I was still talking. Y minus 4 is negative. And then I kept watching it and I was still talking. I was like, this is something I would show. Like, I went through LRCE, so like, this is something I would show and be like, this is what you don't do. Subtract x on both sides. So it just.
But then that was only 10 minutes. And it was.
It was, and then we were going over a homework that they had already done. So I mean, yes, but at the same time, the whole point is that I get reactions from them, and half the time I didn't give them time to react.
Okay,
to
so
things.
you saw react time then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yay! Getting there.
So by when? Let's set a date, let's set a goal.
Oh Lord. Okay, well.
This is the process I walked through with Mr. Dubrell. He watched his video and we collaborated on a Google document to identify the need. For step 2, obtaining new learning, both Hughes and Davenport attended the 7 Strategies of Assessment for Learning training, and we relied heavily on the strategies that we learned in the training. We looked both at which one they felt like they would want to focus on as it relates to the area on the NIET rubric. I often forget to create the teacher-student actions. However, it was beneficial in obtaining new learning for Mr. Dubrell. Developing is interesting. I would say that definitely you have to be you have to build such a relationship with the teacher to develop together. And I'm learning to pull back and allow the teacher to come up with some things.
I'm what the kids ask about. Plus, it shows me they're reading the agenda board.
Yeah.
Time is always a constraint with the teacher, and I always feel so bad. Like, should I come in? Should I not? Do you have time to talk about this? So developing is always rigid.
But what if what you decide is necessarily the best benefit for people? So you can either have.
Developing with Ms. Davenport was definitely more about taking something that she already had, like this factoring worksheet, and tweaking it a little bit so that things are done on purpose or with a purpose. So this was the end product where the students were able to track if they understood or if they did not, and it was supposed to carry over to the classroom to where she was tracking ahead of time and not just during the review. After the Measured Progress Professional Development, Chelsea ran with it. She started a goal line in her room where students had to reach their own personal goal, which was decided after a few assessments. Students would move their card above or below the line depending on whether they met their own personal goal. The student self-assessment sheet was implemented after we continued monitoring the effects of the goal line. Students needed a way to ask themselves what they were learning and if they knew it and what parts or pieces they did not know. The cards were to be used to monitor student achievement and improve academic feedback. Mrs. Hughes is such an awesome teacher, and what it basically boiled down to was just her wanting to bump up her scores, like some 3s to 4s and some 4s to 5. And as we evaluated her lessons, we really saw that we just needed a way to show how much the kids were growing in one class, period.
You go by what you need. You know what you need.
Setting up self-assessments with strong standards and objectives allowed the students to ask themselves the questions necessary to decide next steps. Time to celebrate, right? Well, let's see. We're going to start with Mr. Dubrell, who I worked with towards the end of the school year. He started out in quarter 1 with about a 51.1 academic index in his academic classes. He was performing really well in his honors classes. This is where he started in quarter 1. Notice the top 2 scores are also academic classes. By quarter 2, Mr. Dubrell had fallen to a 36.6, and some of the other teachers took a 2% dive. We started to work together, and I was going to his class daily, helping the students out, etc. And by the end of quarter 3, Mr. Dubrell had stayed right at a 36.6, but this is awesome because everyone else went down by half. So he technically should have been at a 15%, which means that he grew. Yes! Working with Mrs. Davenport, we looked at several aspects of instruction, and we were really trying to figure out why we were not seeing as much growth as we wanted to in the scores. And I feel like what it boiled down to was the level of fidelity with which we were using some of the strategies. What does deserve to be celebrated is that you and Next Door came in with us, and we all began to ask the hard questions and search for the answers to adjust instruction.
See my students working. I also was able to reflect and think about the NIET rubric and see some things that I had opportunities to grow. And another thing that I really appreciate was the feedback that you did provide was specific, and it helped me to see how I can modify the instruction to help the students. Some of the students that I had that I've seen a tremendous growth, one is Jeremy. He failed Spanish 2. Actually, he failed Spanish 1 last year, and he went to summer school, received his credit. He came into Spanish 2 beginning of the year. Grades he would earn were 30s and 40s. And I've seen steady growth in his performance. We have given our end of the year test to my Spanish 2 students, and I'm amazed. The scores were much higher than I anticipated. Individually, I can see how students that were really tough at the beginning, by modifying my instruction and also incorporating the swap, I have seen so much growth. So I really appreciate all you've done to help me.
My 2018 year can be compared to the Titanic. The Titanic is a very huge ship going in one direction, and spots an iceberg and is not able to turn in time to save the ship. And I feel like that's kind of where I was this year with some people I was working with. We worked very hard. We spotted some things that needed adjustment, but because we were going so fast and so big in that one direction, we were unable to miss the iceberg. The crash was inevitable. So there was growth, but not as much as I would have liked to see. I think about the iceberg and Titanic and how much of it lies beneath the surface. And it's like when we identify the need, we only see what's on top. And it's not until we're applying and developing that we realize there's so much more beneath the surface. And it's almost like you have to go back and adjust some things and then come back around. And I'm just learning that this process is ongoing, and crash could be inevitable, but growth will be eventually. I'm not giving up. So what? I hit a burger. I'm going to take myself through the 5 steps again, and I'm just not going to let go.